April 1945. Somewhere over Czechoslovakia. The Soviet pilots saw it first. A single black tulip painted on the nose of a Bf-109 fighter, diving from the sun like a falcon striking prey. In that instant, experienced men who had survived 3 years of the bloodiest air war in history felt their hands go cold on the controls. They knew that silhouette. They knew that marking. Chyorny Chort Vostoka, the Black Devil of the East. By the time they broke formation, it was already too late. The German fighter moved through their formation like a scalpel through silk. Precise, economical, lethal. Two Yak-9s fell in flames before their pilots could even transmit a warning. The rest scattered like startled birds, their tactical discipline evaporating in raw survival instinct. In the cockpit of the 109, a young man with startling blue eyes and an almost gentle face tracked his targets with the cold efficiency of a master craftsman. Erich Hartmann was 23 years old. He had been in combat for less than 3 years. He had killed 352 men. The number that defies belief. Let's pause here, because that number, 352 confirmed aerial victories, is so staggering that it requires context to comprehend. The top American ace of World War II, Richard Bong, achieved 40 victories and was considered a legend. The top British ace, Johnny Johnson, scored 38. These men were heroes, their names carved into aviation history. Erich Hartmann's tally was nearly 9 times higher. To put it another way, Hartmann shot down more aircraft than the top 10 American aces combined. He destroyed more enemy planes than entire squadrons achieved in some theaters of war. His victory count exceeded the total aircraft losses of some smaller nations during the entire conflict. And yet, in the West, his name remained largely unknown for decades. While Allied aces became household names, appeared in newsreels and published memoirs, Hartmann spent 10 years in Soviet prison camps, his story buried behind the Iron Curtain. But on the Eastern Front, in the vast skies above the steppes and forests, where Germany and the Soviet Union waged the most brutal campaign in human history, his name became something else entirely. A ghost story, a curse, a death sentence. The myth before the man Soviet pilots told stories about him in their ready rooms. Some said he could see through clouds. Others claimed he had made a pact with the devil himself. How else could any man survive over 1,400 combat missions? There were rumors he flew a specially modified aircraft with a more powerful engine. The German high command had given him their best mechanics, their finest ammunition. None of it was true. The truth was somehow more unsettling. Erich Hartmann flew standard aircraft, used standard tactics, and possessed no supernatural gifts. What he had instead was something that couldn't be measured in octane ratings or ammunition counts. He understood killing in the air the way a poet understands language, intuitively, completely, without hesitation or doubt. Fighting is like being in a dark room, he once explained, his voice matter-of-fact. You bump against something, you hit it, you kill it. Then you feel your way to the door and leave before someone turns on the light. The Soviet Air Force eventually placed a bounty of 10,000 rubles on his head, an astronomical sum, equivalent to several years' salary for a Soviet pilot. They assigned entire squadrons with the specific mission of hunting him down. They warned their pilots to disengage immediately if they spotted the black tulip marking. None of it worked. The face behind the fear. But who was this man? What circumstances could forge someone capable of such systematic, relentless destruction? The answer begins not in the smoke and fire of aerial combat, but in the peaceful skies above southern Germany, where a boy with a gentle smile learned that the heavens were a place of beauty, freedom, and infinite possibility. Before Erich Hartmann became the Black Devil, before the Soviet pilots whispered his name in fear, before the victories in the prison camps and the long shadow of history fell across his life, he was simply a child who loved to fly. Weissach, 1922. Erich Alfred Hartmann was born on April 19, 1922, in Weissach, Württemberg, into a world still reeling from one war and stumbling unknowingly toward another. His father, Alfred Hartmann, was a doctor, practical, grounded, a man of science and reason. His mother, Elizabeth Wilhelmina Machtolf, called Teeny by everyone who knew her, was something different entirely. Teeny was a pilot. In an era when aviation itself was barely 20 years old, when most women were expected to confine their ambitions to hearth and home, Elizabeth Hartman had fallen completely, irrevocably in love with flying. She had learned during the 1920s, that golden age of aviation when it seemed that men and women with enough courage could simply strap on wings and become so. October 1940. The call. The letter arrived on a gray October morning. Eric was 18 years old, working as a glider instructor, still living at home. The envelope bore the eagle and swastika of the Third Reich. It was an invitation to enter flight training with the Luftwaffe. His father opposed it immediately. Alfred Hartmann was no Nazi. He viewed Hitler with the skeptical eye of an educated man who had seen one war already and understood that glory was usually just blood in better lighting. He wanted his son to study medicine, to heal rather than harm, to build a life of the mind rather than risk death in a machine. His mother said nothing at first. She understood what her son felt because she felt it too. That terrible, beautiful compulsion to fly. That sense that life on the ground was just waiting and life in the air was living. Finally, she spoke. He has to choose, she told her husband. This has to be his decision. Eric chose the sky.